Hey, welcome to the Sales Hunter podcast. I'm Mark Hunter. In the studio today with me, Stu Heincke. Hey, this guy is world class. If you've ever read the Wall Street Journal, I grew up, well, when I was in college, I guess that's when I was growing up, seeing his cartoons. Well, I don't know if they were his cartoons, but hey, what the heck?
That's amazing.
He's a famous cartoonist. And for those of you watching at home on the video package, you can see right there one of his cartoons that he sent me. And hey, that's really cool. But anyway, hey, we got to get on with the show. So Stu, welcome, but stay right there because we're going to roll the video and we'll be right back.
You're listening to the Sales Hunter podcast with Mark Hunter, where the focus is to help you as a sales leader sell with confidence and integrity. And now here's your host.
Hey, my guest today, Stu Heincke. He's the author of his newest book. He's the author of several great books. You got to pick them all up. But his newest one, How to Grow Your Business Like a Weed. And again, for those of you watching on the home edition, video-wise, you can see the book I'm holding up right here. Stu, welcome.
Hey, thank you so much. What an honor to join you, Mark.
Talk to me. How did you come up with the title for this book? Okay, I know you're right about it. You're driving down the 405, or was it the 5?
It was the 10.
Oh, the 10. I'm sorry.
The 10, the Santa Monica Freeway.
LA Freeway. So you're driving out to Riverside, right?
I don't know where I was driving, but I was,
anyway.
heading away from Santa Monica.
And anyway, talk to us about how this whole idea of the weed book came about.
Yeah, I mean, well, so I went through this experience that we've all been through. We see weeds all over the place. You know, I don't think we give them a second thought. But I happened to be driving down the Santa Monica Freeway, the 10, and all of a sudden I spotted this dandelion just kind of, blowing around in the smoggy breeze in the median of the freeway, growing out of a crack. I mean, and you'd think, well, okay, all at once, it was like all these thoughts swirled all at once, and one of them was, isn't that amazing? It's the dandelion just found that crack somehow. We know exactly how. But it has those seeds that fly around. They produce multiple. I mean, thousands and thousands of seeds that fly around everywhere, and they probe every possible opportunity to take root. And that is kind of something we should be doing, and that's sort of the spirit of us in business too. Should be. But there's that. And then, it just looked happy growing out of that crack in the concrete median. I mean, it was like, in the middle of the freeway, 6 lanes either way. And there it was, just kind of happily running its process. And it didn't look like it was disappointed that it wasn't at the beach. It was just going to run it no matter what.
I've got to crack up here with this because you've already used the word weed. You've used the word crack. You've used the word happy. You just didn't use that it was in the joint in the concrete panels and it was rolling over and over or something like that. But
yeah. Well, we're the one weed we're not talking about.
Yes.
We're talking about all kinds of.
Well, I'll tell you
the
what.
one we're not talking about is this one.
See, this is where I think you got me with the book, because when you really do start to think about weeds, the weeds that can't grow outside, they take hold anywhere and everywhere. They are absolutely persistent, which is where I think so many salespeople fall down.
Yeah. Oh, they're persistent. Well, think about it. They have a whole mindset, actually. So they're persistent and aggressive and urgent and resilient and adaptive. But they also collaborate. What a wonderful lesson to draw from them. They collaborate heavily. So there's just all kinds of things, all kinds of attributes about weeds that you just say, I got to be more like a weed.
Yeah. Well, there were a couple examples that you shared there, like the weed that has the 10,000 seeds. And again, you correlate it right to prospecting. You got to be reaching enough people because you don't know which one's going to materialize. Yeah. And then that persistent growth that you just can't get rid of that. The whole book, and I love the way it's kind of laid out. Each chapter is like a deep dive, botanical dive into a different type of weed, and you apply it back to business and sales. It can only come from a creative mind like yours.
And by the way, this had nothing to do with it.
Okay, for those of you who are listening to the audio edition, he was referencing kind of a clip. but it's okay. It's okay.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's just, a little joint there, but no, that had nothing. I don't smoke. I
Right.
don't do any of that stuff. So that's kind of funny because, I'm going to stand up and show you something, Mark, and we'll have to describe it to the audience who's listening in. But this is the T-shirt that I'm wearing. See
Yes,
that?
I know.
Chief Officer
Chief
T-shirt.
Weed.
And, it's a promo item for my book. But when I walk around in this T-shirt, people will say, "Hey, man, I love your T-shirt." I'm saying, "You stoner, you have no idea what." That's not the weed I'm talking about. But it had nothing to do with that. It was just weeds. Look, we all know what it means to grow like a weed.
Right.
Right. That expression exists all around the world. We know, and we've seen it. We watch it, or maybe we tune it out. That's probably what's happening is we tune it out. So it's so natural and such a background sort of occurrence in our lives that we probably tune it out and don't pay attention to the kinds of things that we could pick up from weeds. And so, yeah, I mean, it just, the thing is, when it was that split moment right there on that Santa Monica freeway that I just thought the weeds are setting an example for us that we can follow and we can learn from. And really just, I really was just left with the question, do weeds have a model that they use, a universal model that they use that we can use to grow our businesses, really to grow our businesses, to grow our book of business, to grow our careers. Really, I think it's kind of the theory of everything about growing anything.
It's interesting because as I'm reading the book, you talk about a number of different people. You reference so many other people in the book. And of course, many of them I know because we kind of run in the same circle, but a lot of them I did not know. And it struck me again as another weed example, that the strength of the weed is not only when it's growing alone, but it's also leveraging others. It's leveraging others. And how many times in sales, in fact, it's funny, I was just on the phone this morning with an account manager feverishly trying to break into a major account. And I said, hold on, we got to take a step back. Are you pressing on enough doors? And really came down to it that this account manager was not pressing on enough doors to try to get in. Well, you're not going to be successful. And that goes back to that weed growing in so many places.
Yeah.
Dropping the seeds in so many places.
One of the things you'll notice, if you go outside and you notice a dandelion in your lawn, look up because they don't do anything alone. They never do anything alone. If you look up and you'll see at least dozens, if not hundreds of dandelions also in your, if one is there, then there are a lot of them there. So they never do anything outside of collective scale. And maybe I should also say without unfair advantages, but that'll take us to another part of the book. But still, they don't do anything without just this deep collaboration. I mean, think about it. One weed or one dandelion in your lawn is not a threat. You just pull it up, it's gone, it's over. But hundreds, you'll never get rid of them. So that quantity, and the way that, dandelions are a great example of a lot of things that I think would help us in sales, because you could also notice that as we move through, right now it's still spring, so they're coming up and they're just starting their growth. Actually, all of the plants are starting their growth cycles. But what you'll notice as we go through the summer is that all the other plants, they just have just a single growth cycle. They'll flower and then they'll go to seed and that's it. And they're done for the year, really. But dandelions keep going. They have multiple, they have that same growth cycle every week, and they keep doing it all the way into, let's say, probably, well, where I am anyway, in the Seattle area, into September and October. They're still doing it. They're still sprouting flowers like it was springtime, and then sprouting weeds and spreading those weeds. Those seeds. And that is, look at that. What a great example for us in sales. We need to be doing, what they're showing us is that we need to be doing more. We need to be willing to do more to create a spread in the marketplace. And so they're showing us exactly how to do this.
Yeah, there's a powerful story like what you just shared, that late in the season, they're still out there prospecting. They are still out there prospecting. And even now, as we record the show, we're just on the eve of June, the third month of the second quarter. And I don't have time to prospect. I just got to close deals to make my number for the quarter. And yet you look at the dandelions, they keep prospecting all the way through. And then you sit there and you wonder, well, that's why they're able to start the new season off with dandelions. I mean, because they never stop trying to spread who they are. And what a powerful lesson for salespeople. We can't stop prospecting, regardless of what time of year it is, regardless of the quarter, regardless of what, and this is something else that's interesting. Weeds don't understand a Friday afternoon. Oh, you can't call people on Friday afternoon, right? I mean, right? I mean, how many times, especially in the summer? Oh no, nobody wants to hear from you on a Friday afternoon. I don't think weeds ever got that memo.
Yeah, they just keep going. Now, there is a part where they are plants. They go into senescence. All of them go into senescence, right? They go into they become dormant over the winter. But I want to say though that, I think, you just sort of pointed something out to me that I hadn't realized. And really prospecting is it's just exactly analogous to spreading seeds. The more calls you make, the more outreach you create or make, the more chances you have of sales taking root. And it's really just in a way it's a numbers game. Certainly it's a numbers game with weeds. And you mentioned 10,000 seeds. There's dandelions. We're all familiar with dandelions. Dandelions are perennials that live 5 to 10 years. So they've got 5 to 10 years of all those cycles going. And over the course of that, they produce an average of about 15,000 seeds lifetime. So, and we know how much how hard they are to get rid of. But there's a weed that is spreading across North America in the agricultural fields, water hemp. That plant puts out, are you ready for this? Up to 4.8 million seeds per plant. I mean,
Wow.
Never leaving. It's just these little tiny, like caraway seed seeds, and they get mixed up in the soil, they get mixed up in the farm machinery, and so, but they're never leaving. Isn't that also kind of like, there's talk of recession at the moment, and so that with all that pressure that puts on everybody's shoulders, oh my God, a recession. But the weeds weeds understand a couple of things. One is, they're one of nature's great disruptive sources. There's a great disruption. Source of great disruption in nature, but they know also that they're going to be disrupted, and so they have strategies for dealing with that. But certainly one of them is put out a lot of seeds, and that we ought to come up with a new T-shirt. Actually, put out a lot of seeds.
That's a heck of an email list that water hemp has.
Yeah, it's a big one.
4.8 million. I'd love to have 4.8 million people in my email list.
Yeah,
wow.
That's amazing.
That's really, you stop and think about this. The application. Now, I got to ask you this. Throughout the book, you continue to introduce, and I didn't know you knew so much about weeds, but clearly you did your research.
I did for the book,
it's not a botanical. It's not. This has strong, serious business applications. What chapter in the book is your favorite, and why?
Oh man, when I look through it, I'm just okay. It's pride of authorship, literally, I guess, but or parenting or something. This is my favorite book, and one of the reasons why is that it's going to sound silly, but weeds they're plants. So there's this rich history of researching plants and illustrating them and so on. So there are these beautiful botanical renderings of all kinds of plants, but certainly a lot of them of weed species. And so I was able to license these beautiful renderings. And so there's one at the top of each chapter from the Royal Botanic Gardens in Kew, London. So that's kind of cool. And then another one is at the very beginning of the book. There's a section of quotes about weeds, positive quotes about weeds as guides to growth, and those came from the interviews. And I started out when I was researching the book that, okay, I got to see it. Are there any? What what have some of these prominent people said about weeds? Because I'm sure that they've gotten also that, well, if you want to grow like a weed, this is how you do it. There were there were some that sort of came close, but there was one that said, give a weed an inch and it'll take a yard, which is certainly true. It will. But and there's one that's I think quoted a lot in church or Sunday school, bloom where you are. That's a nice one. But otherwise there were none. So there's a whole collection now of these, and they're in the front of the book. So that's one. I don't know. There's another one. There's a section about scaling like a weed. So it's more than one chapter, but I think that is probably my favorite spot in the book, because it's the message is very, very clear. That's what we need to do. And too many times we're focused on one-to-one leverage in our business, and really just in whatever we do, we're focused on one-to-one leverage, and we can't even see it. And that needs to be rooted out and replaced with multi-channel and collective scale. So just that section about scaling, I think is probably one of the most profound parts of the book.
Yeah, because you really did. I mean, you went into some depth there. And hey, I want to ask you about your WEEDS model, WEEDS, the model. Talk to the audience, explain that, because I think that was a powerful piece.
Well, So to do that, I need to sort of step back a little bit, because remember I was saying the weeds, I was just wondering, well, do the weeds have a model that we can follow, that we can apply to our businesses? And it turns out, the weeds come in all shapes and sizes, but they all follow the same formula for growth. And that is that they leverage a fierce mindset and unfair advantages against collective scale. And they do it according to this process that is honed over millions of years, but is able to adapt at a moment's notice to whatever challenges face the weed species. So with that, there's within all of that, there is the WEEDS model, WEEDS, which stands for Weed-Inspired Enterprise Expansion and Domination Strategies. And that section has eight levels of strategy. Seed strategy, seed pod, thorn, segmentation, vine, all the way down through root and soil strategies. And all of those levels of strategies are meant to help you as the user of weed strategy and of this model to cultivate new unfair advantages. Weeds, they never do anything without an unfair advantage. You can see it. Right. Yeah. I mean, everything they do is done with unfair advantages, or force multipliers built in. So that weeds model, that weeds section within the book is there to help you cultivate all kinds of unfair advantages or recognize all kinds of unfair advantages that you already have in your business.
Well, that's what I found, because it really got me thinking. So explain once again, WEEDS. What's it stand for?
Weed-Inspired Enterprise Expansion and Domination Strategies. The whole idea is, how can we help you develop unfair advantages so that you dominate your market?
I love those last two letters, the D and the S, domination strategy. I mean, to me, that was like, because again, we think so often in sales, just get this sale, move on, get this sale. But that got me thinking two things. A, do I have 100% of my marketplace? No. And two, am I extracting all of the opportunities I can out of my marketplace? No. So, I mean, domination strategy to me was not only about the marketplace, but about the customer. And that really set some light bulbs off in my mind. Yeah.
Well, and where that also touches upon is Thorn strategy, because Thorn strategy is about protecting your turf. And so, in the weeds world, they do that with thorns and all kinds of dirty tricks. I mean, I don't know if you ever brushed up against some poison ivy, but wow, they've got some nasty tricks to keep you out of their territory. Well, we need to do the same thing. It's not all just, it's not all just sort of this fluffy game of lots of great, cool ideas. And you've got to also be tough. And if you don't, your IP and your market, just your place in the market, your share of market, and really your relationships with your customers. I mean, I think it really boils down into large degree to that you've got to have these these relationships with customers that you can keep extracting. I mean, it's not, well, from your standpoint as a seller, you're extracting more business. From their standpoint, you're helping them. You're creating solutions for them. You're giving them ultimately unfair advantages. In fact, I think probably one of the keys to selling something, I know we've talked about, because I've interviewed you a lot for my books. I mean, we've spoken a lot about about your approach to sales and about working with customers and keeping them and all of the, just everything that flows from that. But oh God, I lost my train of thought because what I had a great point I was going to make.
No, because again, I think what you come back to is how we defend what we got. I mean, that's, you know.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Just that is having great relationships with our customers and providing unfair advantages to them that they're really happy with. That's a great defensive measure to keep others out of your territory.
You know, what's funny, but the best defense is a very strong offense.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I've got several consulting clients I work with, and the reason I'm able to keep them as long as I have is because I'm always playing offense. I'm always looking for new ways to help them, and they just cannot get rid of me. I'm just fixing.
They shouldn't.
Yeah. Well, again, because I keep offense. We're creating results. So it's like, why would they even try to go someplace else? Yeah, that's great.
And that's what a great defensive strategy that is.
Yeah, it is.
Nobody's going to be able to penetrate that.
And yet, salespeople are so quick to grab the sale and move on. And we don't nurture what we do. And again, that's what the weed does, because once it plants its roots, like that weed you saw on the 10, it never goes away. I mean, that thing just stays there forever and ever and ever. Yeah. So anyway, hey, we got to wrap this up here in just a bit here, but the book is How to Grow Your Business Like a Weed. I love it. And of course, you've got some other books out, but this is the book we're talking about right now today. How do people find the book? How do people find you? You know, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, thank you. Well, the book is How to Grow Your Business Like a Weed. You can find it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, actually wherever great books are sold. And so you can do that. You can also connect with me on my author site. That's stuheincke.com. There's probably a link that'll come along with this, but stuheincke.com. Or connect with me on LinkedIn. Just mention that you heard me on Mark's show, and I would love to connect.
Great. And oh, by the way, you're going to stick around for the after the show, because that's another way for people to kind of get to know you. So, hey, you've been listening to the Sales Hunter podcast. I'm Mark Hunter. We've been talking today with Stu Heincke, and stick around. Don't run away. Got to do this quick commercial break, and then we'll be back with the after the show with Stu. You've been listening to the Sales Hunter podcast. If you haven't checked out the Sales Hunter University, really encourage you to do so. How do you find it? Go to thesaleshunter.com and you'll see it right there. Now, back to the after the show with Mark and Stu. Hey, welcome back. That was great. I always love talking to you because you and I kind of have this personal connection because you live on Whidbey Island.
Yeah.
Many of you listening to this have no clue where Whidbey Island is. Google Whidbey Island. It's in the
WHIDBEY.
Yeah. Thank you. WHIDBEY. It's in the upper part of the Puget Sound, beautiful area of the country. And I used to hang out there a lot. And of course, you live there now. Man.
I think didn't you grow up here? I think you did.
Well, I didn't grow up there. My grandmother lived on the other side of your ferry, which goes from Clinton to Muckleteal. Now, many of you are saying, how do you spell Muckleteal? If you can't pronounce it, you'll never be able to spell it. So we'll leave it at that. But anyway, my grandma lived in Muckleteal. In fact, my uncles were some of the ferry captains of those.
Oh my gosh! Oh, I didn't even realize that. Yeah, what a wonderful area of the country, isn't it? I mean, it's just magical.
It is. And my aunt and uncle actually managed the lighthouse there in Muckleteal.
Oh, really?
Back when it used to be manned.
Oh my God! I love that lighthouse.
Yeah. And so anyway, that's just a lot of. But anyway, that's about 30 miles north of Seattle. So anyway, it's a great area of the country. But
It's a great area. And then, we've gotten together in Mukilteo before, but we
Yeah.
should do it next time in Langley. So that's where I'm in. Langley's got this little village on the cliffside, and over the water. And like on First Street, there's First and Second, it's like 2 blocks long. And it's First and Second Street with an alleyway and a brewery in the alley and all this kind of stuff, galleries and all sorts. But so all of the stores on First Street that are facing out toward the cliff are on stilts over the cliff. It's cool. I love that kind of stuff. So the pizzeria's on that side of the street, and you can go in there, and man, you get the best view of any pizzeria I've ever seen. It's just whales go by sometimes.
Yeah, and that's why when you wear the word, the shirt chief weed officer, there people do interpret that a little bit differently.
Yeah. I told you at the beginning that they come up and they say, "Hey, I love your T-shirt." I'm thinking, "Oh my God, what
Stoner,
must be a stoner?" Because take a closer look. Do you know what weed I'm talking about?
Oh yeah. There you go. Yeah. Anyway. Hey, always great to catch up with you. We do have to wrap this up, but I know our paths are going to cross here at a Sales 3.0 conference.
Yeah.
You're going to be at Outbound too, and who knows where. I got another deal I got to talk about. I'll talk about it offline.
Okay.
Opportunity to connect with you in July. So it's
fantastic.
So hey,
Yeah,
but hey, this is the Sales Hunter podcast. My name is Mark Hunter. It's always great to have really great friends on the show, and Stu is one of them. His book, How to Grow Your Business Like a Weed. Stu, always great to catch up with you, and stick around, because after we go back to the green room, I'll share with you some ideas.
Thank you. You know what, Mark? Just thank you so much for having me on the show. It's an honor.
Great. Thanks so much. Take care, everybody.